This is the Tsar Bomba, the most powerful nuclear weapon in human history. If it detonated, everything within a 22-mile (35 kilometers) radius would be completely obliterated. Its yield was equivalent to 3,800 Hiroshima bombs. Even crazier, this doomsday weapon went from concept to completion in just 16 weeks. In the summer of 1961, Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev summoned the nation's top physicists and issued a nearly insane order to build the most powerful nuclear bomb ever, with a yield of 100 megatons of TNT. For comparison, all bombs and artillery used during World War II plus the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombs added up to only about 3 megatons. Khrushchev wanted a single bomb 35 times more powerful. The Soviets gave it a name, Kuzka's mother, a Russian expression roughly meaning to give the whole world an unforgettable lesson. But the challenge was immense. Khrushchev had already announced to world leaders that the nuclear test would proceed on schedule. Yet there were only 16 weeks left, and the bomb existed only on paper. The person in charge? Andrei Sakharov, the father of the Soviet hydrogen bomb. Ironically, Sakharov had long opposed resuming nuclear tests. At a meeting, he even handed Khrushchev a handwritten note warning that the test could have irreversible consequences for the world. Khrushchev didn't care. Only Sakharov could design such a weapon. Ultimately, Sakharov accepted the task. The research was conducted in a secret city that didn't appear on maps, gathering the Soviet Union's top nuclear physicists. Everyone was isolated, no one could leave without permission. To maintain secrecy, all reports had to be handwritten. The real problems had just begun. A standard hydrogen bomb had 2 stages. The Tsar Bomba used an even crazier 3-stage design. Its power far exceeded anyone's imagination at the time, but no one had ever tested such a design. Sakharov's team had to synchronize the entire detonation sequence in an extremely short time. One tiny error, and the bomb would fail. Later, someone described it as 2 high-speed trains crashing simultaneously into a watermelon with timing that couldn't be off by a fraction of a second. Even more absurdly, the project was being designed and built simultaneously. Calculations weren't complete, but factories were already producing parts. Parameters were still changing while assembly had already begun. The entire Soviet Union was racing against the clock. Sakharov joked with his colleagues, "If we fail, we might all end up repairing railroads." 2 weeks before the test, the project nearly collapsed. A scientist realized the design might not even work. Panic spread throughout the institute, failure could be catastrophic. Yet they pressed on. Then Sakharov discovered another fatal problem. If the bomb were built to its full 100 megaton design, the fireball would engulf the bomber carrying it. The crew would certainly die. To save the pilots, Sakharov made a critical decision. He replaced some of the bomb's fuel with lead. This reduced the yield to 50 megatons, while drastically lowering radioactive fallout. The fireball would no longer consume the plane, but even so, the crew's survival odds were only about 50%, since no one knew if the untested design would spiral out of control or if the massive parachute would tear at high Arctic altitudes. To slow the bomb, the Soviets built a gigantic parachute over 17,000 square feet, 1,600 square meters. Production was so urgent that nylon manufacturing lines were temporarily shut down. The Tu-95 bomber carrying the bomb had to be completely modified. The bomb was too large to fit inside, so it was mounted externally under the fuselage, looking like a school bus hanging beneath the plane. Parachute ejection and crew escape were impossible. If anything went wrong, the crew would crash with the plane. On October 30, 1961, the bomber took off from a northern Soviet base, heading over the Arctic. As it climbed, the enormous drag from the external bomb made the plane shake violently, and fuel burned faster than expected. But there was no turning back. At 11:30 a.m., the bomb release mechanism activated, but the 27-ton Tsar Bomba didn't fall immediately. The cabin fell silent. Seconds later, it finally dropped, slowly descending toward the Arctic. The massive parachute deployed, and the crew immediately fled at full speed. 188 seconds later, the bomb detonated. A blinding white light lit up the sky. Even with their eyes closed, the crew felt the piercing brightness through the cockpit. The shockwave hit the Tu-95, knocking it down nearly 3,300 feet, 1 kilometer. The fuselage was damaged, and the tail section partially destroyed. Another observation plane was also hit. The giant mushroom cloud shot into the sky, visible hundreds of miles away. This was the most powerful nuclear explosion in human history. Both damaged aircraft barely made it back to base, and all crew members survived. The test also proved the feasibility of three-stage thermonuclear weapons. But after the test, Sakharov never participated in nuclear weapons development again. He became an outspoken critic of nuclear testing and dedicated the rest of his life to the anti-nuclear movement. He later said, "What we have created is beyond human control." The Tsar Bomba demonstrated the peak of human technological power, as well as the madness of the arms race. It is the ultimate record of nuclear might, and a heavy warning: true strength does not come from force, peace is the real measure of civilization.